Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Surabhyay Namaha
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 Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripat maham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Yat kripat maham bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. So we have a few new faces here, especially those who are newly coming. We have new people. Okay, Hare Krishna. From where? Ganesh. Oh, you're Ganesh ji. Ganesh ji, been planning to come here for a long time. Welcome. I think less known to everyone. Less known to me also. Okay, we'll discuss after. Anyone else new? I thought I saw a new face. I didn't see him before.
He is from Pune, Maharaj.
I didn't see him before.
Yeah.
First time in class?
Yesterday also he came.
He came yesterday? Or he must have been hiding behind somebody. Some have like big bodies, he has small body.
He has just signed off from a ship. He came.
Oh, just landed.
Just landed.
Landed at the right place. Okay. So we are reading from Canto number 1. Oh, I see. Okay. Yes. Canto number 1, chapter number 2, entitled Divinity and Divine Service. And today's verse is, what is it? 1/8?
18.
1/8. 18. Although we have already recited this verse, we will recite again, word for word. Nasta
Nashta
prayeshu
Prayeshu
abhadreshu
Abhadreshu
nityam
Nityam
bhagavata
Bhagavata
sevaya
Sevaya
bhagavati
Bhagavati
uttama
Uttama
shloke
Shloke
bhaktir
Bhaktir
bhavati
Bhavati
naistiki
Naistiki
nasta prayeshu bhadreshu
Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
bhagavati uttama shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhaktir bhavati naistiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki
nasta prayeshu bhadreshu
Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
bhagavati uttama shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhaktir bhavati naistiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki
nasta prayeshu bhadreshu
Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
bhagavati uttama shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhaktir bhavati naistiki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki
Bulan.
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
उत्तमश्लोके
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भागवतीतमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी Nasta,
नष्ट
destroyed,
destroyed
prayeshu,
प्रायेषु
almost to nil,
almost to nil
abhadreshu,
अभद्रेषु
all that is inauspicious,
all that is inauspicious
nityam,
नित्यं
regularly,
regularly
bhagavata,
भागवता
Srimad Bhagavatam,
श्रीमद् भागवतम
or the pure devotee,
or the pure devotees
sevaya,
सेवया
by serving,
by serving
bhagavati,
Bhagavati
unto the personality of Godhead,
unto the personality of Godhead
uttama,
Uttama
transcendental,
transcendental
shloke,
Sloke
prayers, bhakti,
Bhakti
loving service,
loving service
bhavati,
Bhagavati
comes into being,
comes into being
naistiki,
Naistiki
irrevocable. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. By a regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Kindly repeat after me. By regular attendance
by regular attendance
in classes on the Bhagavatam
in classes on the Bhagavatam
and by rendering of service
and by rendering of service
to the pure devotee,
to the pure devotees,
all that is troublesome
all that is troublesome
to the heart
to the heart
is almost completely destroyed,
is almost completely destroyed,
and loving service
and loving service
unto the personality of Godhead,
unto the personality of Godhead,
who is praised
who is praised
with transcendental songs,
with transcendental songs,
is established
is established
as an irrevocable fact.
as an irrevocable fact.
Purport. Here is the remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self-realization. The remedy is the association of the Bhagavatas. There are two types of Bhagavatas, namely the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them, or either of them, can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. A devotee Bhagavata is as good as the book Bhagavata because the devotee Bhagavata leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavata, and the book Bhagavata is full of information about the personality of Godhead, and his pure devotees, who are also Bhagavatas. Bhagavata book and person are identical. The devotee Bhagavata is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagavata, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavata. Human reason fails to understand how, by serving the devotee Bhagavata or the book Bhagavata, one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. But actually, these are facts explained by Srila Narada Deva, who happened to be a maidservant's son in his previous life. The maidservant was engaged in the menial service of the sages, and thus he also came in contact with them. And simply by associating with them and accepting the remnants of foodstuff left by the sages, the son of the maidservant got the chance to become the great devotee and personality Srila Narada Deva. These are the miraculous effects of the association of Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The messages of the book Bhagavata, therefore, have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on. The translation again. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and a loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. It's a very important point being made in the text and further explained by Srila Prabhupada in the purport, how this transcendental literature of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is actually unknown to the vast majority of people in the world today, because it is similar to the Bhagavad Gita, a very confidential, and also, as we have seen in the very beginning of the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that this Srimad Bhagavatam is actually for the Mahatmas, for those who are very serious about ending their stay in the material world. The Bhagavatam is glorified very wonderfully by our acharyas, by other Vedic literatures as well. Vedic knowledge actually is very vast. People from outside of India who know that there's something in India besides spices and cloth, that there's knowledge. People since a very long time have known, and some have traveled to India, but very few have actually been fortunate to come to the essence of what the Vedic knowledge is, which is of course the Srimad Bhagavatam. We happen to be part of a lineage and that is especially focused on the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam, which is something explained in the Bhagavatam itself, is described as the mature fruit of all Vedic literatures. The Amala Purana, pure, without any tinge of material contamination. It is described also as the culmination of Srila Vyasadev's rendering of Vedic knowledge in its highest form. That highest rendering of the Bhagavatam, we get glimpses of it in the beginning, but the culmination of that knowledge, of that transcendental realm, is revealed especially or more thoroughly described in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in other words, anyone who is somehow coming in contact with the Bhagavatam, he's an extremely fortunate person. But it must be received by someone who is actually realizing the content of the Srimad Bhagavatam. As Prabhupada explains, there's the book Bhagavata, then there is the person Bhagavata, someone who is fortunate to receive this knowledge by a self-realized soul. That is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, that we are meant to receive transcendental knowledge by someone who is tattvadarshi. Tadvidi pranipatena pri prashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanenas tattvadarshinaha. All of us are actually meant to become tattvadarshi, to have proper understanding, clear understanding of what is tattva. The highest subject matter is referred to as tattva, truth, highest truth, eternal truth. Eternal truth is unchanging. Being eternal, it does not need to change. Being perfect, also it does not need to change. That's why Srila Prabhupada would often chastise his American disciples. You always want to change. You always want to break things, make new. No need to change. This is the malady or disease of modern day society, especially Western. always breaking, making, building, again breaking. They're breaking and making because they're dealing with things which are transient, especially their ideas or their understanding of what life is, or their social, we could say, policies, social systems. We have seen, especially in the last 2 centuries, all kinds of ideologies and philosophies with communism and socialism and altruism, and Bhagavatam is that literature which is giving us a type of knowledge which, because it is originating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is perfect knowledge, and therefore something that is perfect does not need to change. The Bhagavatam is, we could say, an extension or a further elaboration of the Bhagavad Gita. That's why these are the not only is the Bhagavatam referred as Grantaraj. 2 things important here. It is Granta. Granta means different than ordinary book. Of course, we say Bhagavad Gita is book of knowledge, but it is Granta. Granta means it is of a different nature than ordinary literature. And very interestingly enough, one of our great Vaishnava Acharyas, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Srila Jiva Goswami, who has very nicely presented and explained and glorified the Bhagavatam in his Satsandarbhas. He not only speaks about the Bhagavatam as being Grantaraj, or king of knowledge, he refers to the Bhagavatam as being the emperor of all knowledge. You've read that first, what is it? Tattva Sandarbha. The first of the 6 Sandarbhas. The same point actually is made both by Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and their respective writings. In the Tattva Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami, the whole purpose of that first of the 6 books on the subject matter of Tattva is establishing the unique and unparalleled nature of the Bhagavatam, and how all knowledge that we can hope to obtain comes from the Bhagavatam. All knowledge pertaining to the subject matter of transcendence or tattva. And it's very interesting how he reveals that the Bhagavatam, initially this may sound difficult to accept, but I will just repeat what he's telling. He goes on to glorify, of course, the Vedas, because the Vedas are the original knowledge. Vedas are transcendental sound vibration received by Lord Brahma at the time of creation, by the Lord himself, revealed within the heart. Srila Jiva Goswami, and only a personality like Srila Jiva Goswami, can make the following statement. that although the Vedas are the original knowledge revealed whenever there is creation in the material world, the Lord Brahma, the Bhagavatam is a further extension, not only a further extension, but a greater extension or a greater level of revelation is given in the Bhagavatam. And therefore, he, like all the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who is none different than Krishna, they worship the Bhagavatam, recognizing that it is the culmination of all knowledge. So in other words, for us in Kali Yuga, it is more important, not everyone will agree necessarily, but our Vaishnava Sampradaya, our Acharyas explained, it is more important for us to hear and study the Bhagavatam than the original Vedas. Because within the Bhagavatam being compiled by Srila Vyasadeva being a direct incarnation of the Supreme Lord, therefore Srila Vyasadeva, in his mature realization of the subject matter, after being instructed by his spiritual master Srila Narada Muni, is revealing to us in the Bhagavatam what is not found anywhere else. That's why even to this day, Bhagavatam, we are receiving the Bhagavatam that has been compiled since 5,000 years. The subject matter of the Bhagavatam is so profound and so, in many ways, concealed. Just like the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita also concealed. Unless one adopts the process. Bhakto sime sakachiti rahasyam hitad uttamam. In various places in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how this is very, very confidential, very mysterious knowledge. It is also described, of course, as the king of knowledge, Rajavidya. Rajavidya Rajaguyam, Pavitram, Idam, Uttamam, Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. So, that is why all of our acharyas have written commentaries on the Bhagavatam. And these commentaries, by the mercy of our founder Acharya, have found their place in the purports of the Bhagavatam we are receiving today through Srila Prabhupada. So, in the same way that the Bhagavatam is glorified and worshipped, those who actually take up the teachings of the Bhagavatam, the process of the Bhagavatam, they are also glorified. They also become very dear to Krishna. So both, this is the main point being explained here. If one has the good fortune of associating with either the book Bhagavatam or the person Bhagavata, he can get the same benefit of becoming. We'll see in the next few verses the specific, what we have to do specifically. In 4 verses coming, the whole gist or the whole complete formula, how to become completely freed from this material world, how to actually develop ultimately pure love of Krishna, is nicely explained. So our Vaishnava Sampradaya is therefore very, very unique in this way. There are many Sampradayas. There are other Vaishnava Sampradayas also. As we know, 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu commissioned his most confidential associates, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, he commissioned them to deeply study the subject matter. Actually, he requested them to extract from all the Vedic literatures available. Of course, after 5,000 years, Vedas were compiled, as we know, 5,000 years ago. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, I believe in the Tattva Sandarbha, how today, I mean that was like 500 years ago when he wrote this, less than 10% of the original Vedas are available to us. 90% of the Vedic writings compiled by Srila Vyasadeva and his associates are no more. They've been lost, literatures have been burnt or whatever, so many things. I mean, there's a whole history since 5,000 years. But fortunately for all of us, we have these 2 most important of literatures, beginning with the Bhagavad Gita. This is what in Gurukula, in bygone days, but even maybe in a few Gurukulas now also, they would study especially these 2 literatures, and they would learn them by heart. It was not uncommon a few hundred years ago for young boys to memorize the entire Bhagavad Gita before the age of 10. Not uncommon. Now it's rare. But still it is there. What is less common is to put into memory the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. I have a godbrother who was visiting South India, maybe around Udupi somewhere, I don't know, somewhere in India, South India. He was mentioning that he had met one Brahmana who had put to memory the entire Bhagavatam. We have these titles in India. Chaturvedi. Our Sundarananda is a Chaturvedi.
Dvedi, Chaturvedi.
Trivedi. Yes, but now only name is there. Nice name you have, Prabhu. Can you recite? But those titles are there because people used to master, used to learn, and it would take X number of years. But that was actually, it's nicely explained, something which we don't find in modern day education, that it is at the tender age between, let's say, 6 to 14, between the ages of 6 to 14 or 8 to 12, let's be generous, 6 to 14, at that young age, that is the time actually to memorize. Very easily the mind, Krishna has created the body in this way. that one can very easily learn languages and memorize. And that was a process. And that's still the process in those gurukulas where they are following the actual system. Some people in the West will sometimes criticize why they spend so much time just learning things by heart, without knowing that actually that's the time to learn, and that the process is by learning it by heart. When they get older, just like if, nowadays we do things on the computer, save. You save it, it goes in a hard, on a hard drive, memory, hard memory, and then you can, you can take out your file. That was done without the use of computer. That was done naturally. And there are methods or systems, just like to memorize one verse. Nowadays, most people have a hard time memorizing even one verse. But there's a method to memorize an ordinary verse. There's a method to memorize a chapter. There's a method, a process to memorize an entire book. These things are there, because nowadays we don't have time. We don't have time. So therefore we've disconnected with the more traditional ways of doing things. And we were discussing today how, because nowadays most people are caught up with these machines, the more we use machines, the more we become dependent on machines, we lose the natural ability to understand things or to learn things. These are extremely destructive in more than one ways. Practically speaking, in all ways. I mean, some benefit can be there, but if we weigh the benefit and the advantage and disadvantage, there's more disadvantage. There's actually more disadvantage, because to produce this comes from some factory somewhere. People in China, where the rate of suicide is very high, are caught up in this kind of factory work. I won't describe some of the things that are going on there, but it's not only China. I mean, the whole world is caught up with machine, living in a world of machine. Prabhupada would call it brick civilization. We're living in brick civilization. So this was Srila Prabhupada's great desire, that we especially, that's why he introduced the daily reading of the Bhagavatam, and he wanted us to train our children in these transcendental literatures, especially Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, explaining, outlining how so many different subjects are actually there. It's a question of extracting these subject matters and presenting the knowledge of the Bhagavatam. And of course there are many other books that are supportive of the message we can see of the Bhagavatam. So very important for us to receive this particular instruction, how we as a society are meant to make this transcendental literature available to as many people as possible, so that by reading such literature and by applying the message of the Bhagavatam, they also can become Bhagavatas, and whoever comes in contact with them, they will also have the opportunity to become transformed. Bhagavatam is actually, this kind of knowledge is meant to transform the lives, as Prabhupada would say, of a misdirected civilization, and beginning with transforming our own individual lives, helping us understand how it is primarily, especially in this Kali Yuga, by coming in contact with these two Bhagavatas, by hearing on a daily basis the Bhagavatam, and then by serving the Bhagavatam, by associating with those who are living the teachings of the Bhagavatam. And in this way, as we will see in the next few verses, we already got a hint in the previous verses, the process of purification will take place, and we will see things, understand things differently than what we do now. I'll read the verse again, if there's any comment or question. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Yes.
Here it is mentioned that human reason fails to understand how by serving the devotee Bhagavat or the book Bhagavat one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. So can you more elaborate the matter?
Human reason fails to understand. It means that the process of both hearing from the Bhagavatam as well as serving the person Bhagavatam will result in bringing that individual to a platform which is not humanly possible to explain. And that is connected very much with this one verse we will find in the Bhagavatam, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Sayad Ahaitukam. Causeless knowledge. For example, when we go to college or university, I don't know about you, but we don't get causeless knowledge. When the time to write the exam comes, if you haven't studied your subject matter, you won't be able to write it. But the process that is there by hearing the Bhagavatam and by serving the devotees who are living the Bhagavatam will bring us these two things. This verse will be coming up. It will give us causeless knowledge that can be explained or that can be understood in the following way. I mean, it is part of our philosophy. The knowledge we are seeking, actual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, and other forms of knowledge also, are already within all of us. Living entity by nature has the same qualities of Satchitananda as Krishna. That is covered by different layers of impurity or ignorance. And that's what will be explained in the verses to come. As we rise above these modes of material nature and become situated in the mode of goodness, then by the mercy and by the grace of Krishna, we will come, we will rise beyond that material level of goodness. I mean, majority of people in the material world are not on that level of goodness. In Kali Yuga especially, most people are very heavily influenced by the lower modes of nature, Rajagun and Tamagun. So in other words, the process which is being described here cannot be understood with our ordinary, limited, imperfect material intelligence. We acquire, we have the opportunity of acquiring knowledge and of realizing, of knowing different things that don't happen normally. That only happen when there is, we could say, intervention, when Krishna intervenes, when Krishna directly himself empowers somebody or inspires someone or gives one the opportunity to understand or to realize. So in other words, without going through the normal processes that are known by ordinary people, like if you want to acquire knowledge, normally you have to go to college or to university, and then you get some degree, some recognition, and some amount of knowledge you can accumulate. But what is being explained here is that by this, without going to university, without going to college, simply by these two simple activities of hearing on a regular basis and of putting into practice and associating with Bhagavatas, then we can get results that are way beyond what is possible, let's say, on the human level. What awaits all of us actually is completely, totally beyond the human level, because transcendence is beyond the matter. Yeah.
Is it that from mode of ignorance and passion to come to the level of mode of goodness, it is by one's own endeavor, and then from goodness to transcendental by the causeless mercy of Lord Krishna? Is it so? Or even for a entity, individual living entity, by his independence, can he come to goodness, or that also is also blessed?
The question is, is it that from ignorance to passion, or to conquer, let's say, these two lower levels of Tamagun and Rajagun, is it only by one's endeavor, and then only by Krishna's intervention does one transcend afterwards the mode of goodness, right? Yeah. Nothing is possible without Krishna's endeavor, or not Krishna's endeavor, without our endeavor, of course, and without Krishna's intervention. So even to rise from the lower modes to the higher modes, we need Krishna's blessings. And the verse that we'll be seeing in a few days does mention, however, that it is only when one reaches a particular level, means the mode of goodness, where one actually, generally, that is how it happens. I mean, one can transcend, one can go immediately to the pure level of pure goodness, even from a lower level. But generally, it is a gradual progress we go from the lower modes, etc. The whole Vedic lifestyle, the whole Vedic literatures are there to actually gradually bring one from the lower level like that. It's just that with the recent, let's say, advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the process he has given in terms of the Harinam Sankirtan, that is like, as Prabhupada would explain, to go to the 10th or 20th storage, you can either take the staircase or you can take the elevator. We've been given the elevator option. So we just, if we take that option, then very quickly we can, go from whatever level to a higher level.
Yesterday, Shloka, I had some question.
Yes.
Since long time
Since a long time. I want to clear this out. Yes.
How our prayer should be to go to spiritual, because we have problem. That's what we want to.
How what?
How our prayer should be to the Lord. That
Faith.
Prayer.
Okay.
To the Lord, that here we have so many problems that we want to go, or to anyway. If you want to here also we serve the Lord. So in every lifetime we have to serve to Lord. So rather than we have problem, that's what we want to go to spiritual world, or is there any other reason we have to? Because generally, I think that there is a problem. We should get rid of that. That is the reason.
That means if we don't have any more problems, we won't have any desire to go back to the spiritual.
So what? How our prayers? What is our intention exactly?
Problem or no problem, we should want to go to the spiritual world, because actually our acharyas explained that there are only basically 4 problems in life, isn't it? Yeah. So if we cultivate knowledge, we will come to know that what we call as problem is not really a problem. The real problems are the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease, isn't it? So, when we read these literatures, we come to understand that actually our main problem is that we have become disconnected with our original nature, which is to be in a loving relationship with Krishna. Our real problem is that we have lost the essence of what we are, actually. We are meant to be fully, constantly, continuously in transcendental bliss and happiness through personal relationship with Krishna. That's our eternal constitutional position. We call it Krishna Prema, pure love of God, pure love of Krishna. So that's our real problem. And we come to know about this by coming in contact with these literatures, and we come to know that actually whatever so-called love that I may experience in the material world is very far from being the ideal. It's not actually love. When we gradually begin to purify our consciousness and understand what is real love by seeing examples from Vaishnavas and from the Lord's pastimes, the whole Leela of the Lord in Vrindavan is to actually highlight those kind of relationships, very deep relationships, different kinds of relationships based on the whole science of rasa. That is what we have given up. By giving up the association of Krishna, we have given up our real life. Yeah. So, and as a result of course, we are caught up with these, what we call the four problems of life: birth, death, old age, and disease. Which when we are lacking this knowledge or understanding, therefore we don't even, we have no clue whatsoever of what love is. It's just like animals have undeveloped consciousness. So in modern day society, majority of people, because they are on the bodily platform, they are on the animalistic platform. So that is actually a real problem, being disconnected or being unable to actually experience ourselves in that loving relationship with Krishna. By the association of the book Bhagavata and by the association of the person Bhagavata, then that can gradually become reawakened, revived, and everything else is even for a self-realized person, a disease might be there, but he won't be bothered by that, because the consequence or the benefit of practicing and engaging in devotional service is that one transcends not only the three modes of material nature, but one also transcends the threefold miseries of life. So for someone who's completely self-realized, even these four problems of birth, death, old age, and disease, they are no longer problems for him. He will experience disease, old age, and he will have to leave his body, but because he's on that highest platform of transcendence, he's not disturbed by that as ordinary people would be. So although we say that actually these are the only four problems, even for someone who's self-realized, even those are not major issues. Our major problem is our having become disconnected from Krishna, from our loving relationship with Krishna. And depending on our level of consciousness, those who are highly self-realized, they are very conscious of this, and they endeavor, simply they focus on this point of how to revive their loving relationship with Krishna. Yeah. So before it gets too dark, anyone?
Yeah. And there is optional question. You can.
Optional question?
Yeah. Question is, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And she gives an option. Krishna himself, Adi Leela 2.5. Second, Krishna's in creation, Adi Leela 3.84. Third,
What's the question?
who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Thank you. Who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
Yeah.
If one reads the Chaitanya Charitamrita or any book of Srila Prabhupada, one can come to understand who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. According to our Vaishnava Sampradaya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a very special incarnation of the Lord, who is actually non different than Lord Krishna himself. And by reading especially the first section, the author of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains in detail in the Adi Leela, the first section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, and Ancha Lila. So in that first section, first and second chapter, I read first chapter, he spends a long time and brings in many wonderful references establishing who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he does the same thing regarding establishing who is Krishna. Yeah. So that's the specialty of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But one will not be able to understand by immediately going to the Chaitanya Charitamrita unless first one begins with the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada has given us this process. Our Vaishnava Acharyas, you first have a nice understanding of the basic teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And then, even after Bhagavad Gita, one should then go to the Bhagavatam and have yet another, further understanding, more deeper understanding. And then after nicely reading, studying both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then one will be able to appreciate the teachings of the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
His question was Maharaj like this, that who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? In Adi Lila 2.5 is mentioned Krishna himself. In Adi Lila 3.84 is mentioned Krishna's incarnation. So he was a bit confused in these two.
Same thing. because the English language is compared, let's say, to the Sanskrit language, we speak of Krishna as Avatari, the source of all incarnations. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not different than that Krishna. When I'll just close on this point here, which should be of interest to all the devotees. It is very wonderfully explained by none other than Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur that whenever that time will come, when we are ready to go back to the spiritual world, to Goloka Vrindavan, we're not just going to any Vaikuntha planet. I mean, it's nice to go to any Vaikuntha planet, I suppose, but there's a special, amongst all of those planets, there's a very special Vaikuntha planet, which is called Goloka. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you can find this in the Brahma Samhita. He explains that the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are so fortunate because they have been exposed first by reading Bhagavad Gita to Krishna Tattva. And then as they progress from Bhagavad Gita to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then from the Bhagavatam to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they'll come to understand, oh my God, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, oh my God, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What am I going to do when I go back to Goloka? So he explains that actually the Krishna Lila and the Gaura Lila are eternally going on in the spiritual world, in Goloka, and within Goloka, human reason fails. Human reason fails, but when we will go back to Goloka, those who are followers of Lord Chaitanya, we will simultaneously, inconceivably, be participating in both Leelas simultaneously. When devotees come from foreign country, then there's a dilemma. Should I go to Mayapur? That dilemma will not be there. Well, somehow it's like, it's like demons can expand. What to speak of devotees? We don't, it's like we know how yogis can be very mystical. They have mystic cities. Devas. Asuras also, we read about asuras, how they, take on different forms. So devotees also, when we become freed from this material situation, then we will, in two transcendental bodies, simultaneously, inconceivably, we will relish the Gora and Krishna Lila. Haribol. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jai.
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Jai Samasta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Gaur Pimanandi. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Where's our calendar? Bring calendar. Don't close. Quick. Today we have a wonderful announcement, and we will show you also. We received our first of hopefully many to come, first calendar 2021.
Close kar.
No, it's okay.
वीडियो में आ रहा है
उल्टा किया
Okay.
उल्टा
So this is by the good efforts of our Stoka Krishna, who just about nicely printed actually, and this is available as of now. Anyone can contact us, and we will have a personal copy for all of you who continue to attend Bhagavatam class. Those who don't attend Bhagavatam class, maybe next year. And we will also be distributing this day after tomorrow to all of our workers here also on Makara Sankranti. We want to keep everyone happy. And Rameshwar Prabhu is here? Okay. So we have some, prasadam. Where's prasadam?
Online.
Oh, it's right. Behind me, hiding. We have some nice prasadam. Yeah, it's okay. That